So, have you ever felt like maybe you've gone a bit too far, made some choices, some mistakes that leave you wondering, well, wondering if there's any coming back from that?
Mm-hmm. That heavy feeling, yeah. Or sometimes it's just a quiet question.
Yeah.
Can someone like me, can I still find my way?
Exactly. Well, today we're going to dive deep into a really old story that tackles exactly that. It's this profoundly human struggle.
We're going to unpack the incredible journey of Angulimala. He's this figure in Buddhism who went from being a truly feared serial killer
Unbelievable.
to becoming a revered saint, a spiritual teacher. It's quite the transformation.
And what's great is that we actually have sources, don't we? Accounts of his life, teachings linked to him.
That's right. And they give us this amazing lens to look at, well, radical interchange.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to really dig into the lessons here, about forgiveness, about transformation.
And about that potential for change that might just be inside everyone, no matter how dark the past looks.
Okay, so let's get into the beginning. Angulimala. He wasn't always this figure of terror.
No, not at all. His birth name was Ahimsaka.
Ahimsaka. And that name meant...
Incredibly, it meant harmless one, or nonviolent one.
Wow. Okay. And he started out pretty promising.
Oh, yeah. By all accounts, bright student, intelligent, from a good, respectable family.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it? How someone with, well, such a positive start could end up so far off track.
It really does. And, it kind of highlights how external things, like the actions of other people, can just dramatically shift someone's entire life.
So what happened? What was the turn?
Well, the story goes, it was jealousy. His fellow students, they got envious.
Oh.
And they went to their teacher and basically lied about him. Falsely accused them, twisted things around.
And the teacher believed them, didn't check or anything?
But apparently not. The teacher, believing these lies, gave Ahimsaka this truly cruel final assignment.
This is the part that's just hard to grasp.
Mm-hmm. He told him to collect 1,000 human fingers as, the final step to complete his education.
1,000 fingers.
Yeah.
That's not education.
No. It was pretty clearly intended as a way to get rid of him, maybe even get him killed.
Yeah.
It's shocking, really, the malice involved.
From a teacher, someone you'd trust.
Exactly. It raises huge questions about, power and betrayal.
Mm.
And Ahimsaka feeling totally abandoned, rejected.
His faith in goodness must have just shattered.
Completely fractured, it seems. And tragically, he kind of embraced the monster they made it out to be, took on this identity that was essentially forced on him.
And that's when the name change happened.
Yes, he became known as Angulimala.
Meaning?
Finger necklace. Because he started killing travelers, collecting their fingers, wearing them.
Oh, that's gruesome.
It is. And by the time we get to the climax of this part of the story, he had 999 fingers. Just one more to go to meet that horrible demand.
You mentioned the terror he caused.
Yeah, the accounts describe sheer panic. Villages nearby just emptied out when people heard he was around. The king even assembled an army specifically to hunt him down.
People lived in constant fear.
Absolute dread. It just shows the kind of chaos and suffering that, unchecked violence can create.
Okay, but then the story shifts dramatically.
It really does. This is the pivotal moment. Picture this. Angulimala is out there, maybe looking for that final victim.
And he sees someone.
He sees a lone figure, just walking calmly, steadily on the forest path. And this figure is the Buddha.
The Buddha himself, walking right towards danger.
Mm-hmm. And Angulimala, he sees his 1,000th finger, his final target. He thinks this is it.
So he goes after him.
He does.
Yeah.
But here's where something strange, almost miraculous happens. Angulimala starts running full speed.
Yeah.
But he can't catch up. The Buddha just keeps walking at this normal, steady pace. But Angulimala, no matter how fast he runs, can't close the distance.
How is that possible?
Well, symbolically, it's incredibly powerful, isn't it? Physical force versus profound inner peace. Angulimala, who relies on overpowering people.
He's completely baffled.
Utterly. Imagine his frustration. He finally yells out, "Stop, monk, stop." It sounds almost desperate, like his whole reality is shaking.
And the Buddha's reply, I remember this part. It's so simple, but so deep.
Exactly. He turns, apparently with complete calm and compassion, and says, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who must stop."
I have already stopped. What did he mean by that? Not physically stop walking, sure.
No, it was much deeper. He meant he had stopped all harming, stopped violence, greed, hatred within his own heart and mind. He'd stopped the inner running, the cycle of causing suffering.
Okay. While Angulimala was still very much running physically, but also caught in this cycle of violence against others.
And ultimately against himself, yeah. Trapped by his actions, his anger, his delusion, it really makes you think about the ways we might be running in our own lives, right?
Definitely. And just hearing those words, seeing the Buddha, not afraid, not hateful, just compassionate. That must have hit Angulimala hard.
It seemed to have been the absolute turning point. Maybe the first time in a long time someone had seen past the monster to the person underneath.
And there's a teaching, isn't there? Something from the Dhammapada that connects here.
Yes, exactly. All beings tremble before violence. Life is dear to all. Knowing this, do not strike or cause to strike. It's thought that this kind of realization just flooded Angulimala in that moment.
Seeing the shared desire for life, for safety, confronting the violence he'd inflicted from a totally new angle.
It's like those layers of anger and betrayal started to crack open.
And he remembered who he was before, Ahimsaka, the harmless one.
That seems to be the idea. That true nature, buried deep down, resurfaced. And the sheer weight, the horror of what he'd done just overwhelmed him.
Real remorse.
Profound remorse. He dropped his weapons, threw down that awful necklace, and just knelt there before the Buddha.
And then he asked that question, the one that brought us here today.
Yeah. Master, can someone like me still be saved? It's the heart cry, isn't it? Is redemption possible after all this?
And the Buddha's answer.
It was revolutionary, really. He said yes. Not just yes, but he explained why. The very fact that Angulimala could ask, that he desired change, showed that his fundamental goodness, his potential for awakening his Buddha nature, was still alive, still present.
So no one is beyond hope if they genuinely want to change.
That's the core message. If the wish to change is sincere, the path is open.
So Angulimala takes that first step. He becomes a monk, throws away the weapons, the necklace.
But, the stories are clear. Transformation isn't magic. It's not instant or easy.
Right, he faced consequences, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. When he went into the villages for alms, for food, as monks do, people were terrified, understandably.
They'd throw stones at him.
Yeah, 3 stones, shouted insults, ran away. He often came back to the monastery bruised, empty-handed. It must have been incredibly difficult.
How did the Buddha help him through that?
With gentle wisdom. He'd ask him, Angulimala, are you suffering? And then he'd gently remind him that this pain, this hardship, was the ripening of his past actions, his karma.
So facing it now was actually better than facing potentially worse consequences later.
Exactly. It was a form of purification. The Buddha encouraged him to accept it with patience, even gratitude, as part of the path.
It sounds like that teaching about gradual purification, like refining silver.
Precisely. By degrees, little by little, a wise person should remove his own impurities. It emphasizes that it's a process.
So it wasn't just one decision, it was a daily thing.
Every day. Every moment, really. Choosing compassion when met with hostility. Choosing kindness instead of reverting to anger. Choosing service. It was a constant practice.
And slowly, it worked. He changed.
Amazingly, yes. Over time, he became known for the complete opposite of his past. For gentleness, for wisdom, for a deep sense of peace.
And that story about pregnant women seeking him out?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. They felt his presence brought peace and safety for childbirth. His name, once a symbol of death, became linked with protection and well-being.
It's hard to even imagine that level of change.
And ultimately, the tradition says he achieved arahantship, full enlightenment.
Wow. From serial killer to fully enlightened being.
It really demonstrates the incredible power of the path, the potential within everyone.
There's also that story with the king, right? King Pasenadi.
Yes. The king is still looking for Angulimala, the killer, completely unaware of this transformation. He visits the Buddha.
And the Buddha.
The Buddha just points to this calm, meditating monk nearby and says, Your Majesty, there sits Angulimala.
The king must have been stunned.
Completely astonished. That peaceful monk, that's a killer I've been hunting. It just shows how total the transformation was.
And didn't the Buddha offer one last insight to the king?
He did. He said something like, Angulimala wasn't captured by the king's army, but by something much stronger.
The truth of love and compassion.
Exactly. A different kind of power altogether.
So, bringing this back, what does this ancient story, this incredible turnaround, mean for you listening right now? Why should we care about Angulimala today?
Because it's not just history. It holds really relevant lessons for our own lives, our own struggles.
We might not be, collecting fingers.
Hopefully not.
Right. But we cause harm in other ways, don't we? With words, maybe. Or by stealing someone's joy or killing potential in ourselves or others through our choices.
Absolutely. We all have our own finger necklaces in a way.
Yeah.
Things we carry, regrets we have.
But the core message here is just profound hope, that inner goodness, that Buddha nature, it's always there, indestructible.
It might be covered up by layers of pain, mistakes, conditioning, like Angulimala's was.
Yeah.
But it's never truly gone. It can be rediscovered.
But it takes action, right? It's not just about believing it. You mentioned that teaching.
Yeah, however many holy words you read,
Mhm.
what good will they do you if you do not act upon them? It's about putting it into practice.
Taking responsibility, recognizing our own agency.
Your past doesn't have to dictate your future. Mistakes don't define your ultimate worth. Your current situation isn't permanent. Change is always possible.
So what are some practical things, some steps inspired by Angulimala that we could actually, do?
Well, the first step, maybe the hardest, is to face your truth with courage.
Like Angulimala confronting his past.
Exactly. Look honestly at where you are, what you've done, what needs to change. Not to beat yourself up, but just to see clearly so you can change.
Okay, what's next?
Seek forgiveness, starting with yourself. This is huge. If the Buddha could see the potential in Angulimala,
We need to try and see it in ourselves, too. Offer ourselves that same compassion.
Then make amends where possible. Angulimala dedicated his life to helping. We can focus on creating good, on repairing harm if we can, moving forward.
That makes sense. And mindfulness.
Crucial. Practice daily mindfulness because every moment is a new chance. A chance to respond differently, more wisely, instead of just reacting on autopilot.
To catch ourselves before we fall back into old patterns.
Right. And finally, serve others. Turning our focus outwards toward the needs and suffering of others. That can be incredibly healing for ourselves, too.
It takes the focus off our own stuff for a bit.
It really does. And it generates positive energy, positive karma.
When you think about Angulimala's story lasting over 2,500 years, inspiring people.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone who seemed irredeemable became this powerful symbol of hope.
It shows that failures don't have to be the end. They can become, testimonies. Wounds can lead to wisdom. Mistakes can be the foundation for something meaningful.
There's that saying again. What you are is what you have been. What you'll be is what you do now.
The power is always in the present moment. To start again, right now.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to ask you, listening, are you carrying stuff? Guilt, shame, regret.
Are you maybe wondering if real change, is actually possible for you? Asking that quiet question, can I still be saved? Can I find my way?
Well, if this story tells us anything, if the Buddha's response to Angulimala means anything, the answer is yes. A clear, resounding yes.
He saw that potential in someone who had done terrible things. He sees it in you too.
It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to turn towards the light, towards healing.
It requires sincerity, asking the tough questions and just taking the next right step, even a small one.
So maybe begin today. Just take a moment later. Reflect. What needs to change? What's one tiny step you could take?
Remember Angulimala's courage. Not just the dark courage, but the courage to change.
Trust that goodness inside you, that Buddha nature.
May you find that courage. May you find the strength to forgive yourself, maybe others. May you realize your own amazing potential.
May you trust your inner wisdom. And maybe, just maybe, let your own transformation be a light for someone else.
Always remember, no matter how far you feel you've wandered off the path.
The way back home is always, always available.
So the final thought to leave you with is this. Will you stop running?
Will you allow yourself finally to be caught by love, by compassion, by your own potential for goodness, your journey of transformation? Well, it can begin right now.